Welcome to another QuickBooks Online video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at bank feeds, which work somewhat similar to importing CSV file information, CSV files from your bank statement, your credit card statement, but this is a better alternative. And the reason is you don't have to log into your bank, export files, and then import them in QuickBooks. It's done much more automatically, much better alternative. So I'm going to take you through a couple of screenshots on how that process works. And then on the final part, I'll have a video recording of how you match, how you add, and how you work with all those transactions that end up being imported into the file and are under review. So first screenshot basically is going into the banking section, which brings us here. And then we're going to want to make sure we click Connect Account. And then, well, we select our bank. So in this section, there's going to be pictures of the most common or most used banks. If you don't see your bank, you just type the bank name. And if it's an American Express card, well, it's the username, the password, you enter that information. If it's a bank account like here, Scotiabank, same deal, credit card and password. And then once you're into the screen, you might have multiple accounts for your bank. You might have multiple business accounts. You might have a credit card account. So you select whichever is the most relevant, whichever one it is that you want to set up. So in my case, it's a Visa credit card called Visa Silver. So I'm selecting from my little dialog box here, the GL. It's lined up with this GL called Visa Silver. And then it's going to ask me, well, I want to start importing from which date? You could go back as far as, I believe, 1 year. You could customize the date. Then you hit connect. And it'll connect to your bank account. That might take a number of seconds. Shouldn't take too long, maybe just like a matter of 1 or 2 minutes. Once we've finished with all those steps and we've set up the feed, we'll see in this case our credit card, which we set up, Visa Silver up here, and we can see all of the transactions that have been imported. And all of these are in a section called For Review, which is sort of like a pending area that you're going to have to look at and either match or add in the book. So these transactions down here still haven't really been posted. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. Before I tackle this section down here, I just want to pull up this Excel sheet. And basically what this is an export of that Visa Silver credit card. So the items here are items that have been paid with that credit card. Actually, all of them, not just the ones in yellow. But the ones I've highlighted in yellow are items that I've already entered in QBO. So typically, all of these items in yellow, like for instance, we'll look at Wondershare 6167. QBO in the future will be smart enough to recognize that this is something that has been already entered, and therefore that 6167 here, under action, it should say match and not add. And you'll just click match and it'll get rid of this, right? But because we just set this up right now and I've done those entries before I set up my credit card feeds, QuickBooks is not smart enough, I guess you can say, to recognize that this is an entry that was already done. So why don't I just get rid of all these guys that I have highlighted in here? So I have Amazon 7174, 1705, and 3602. 1704, 7141, 362. I got Fido, and Wondershare. So what I'll do with these is batch action, exclude. So it just took those off my little waiting list area. And this whole skater, let me exclude that one as well. Essentially, let's pretend that these weren't supposed to be in here. So I'll exclude those two. I'm left with these guys, which I want to enter. And I know that whenever I'm ordering stuff from Amazon, it's usually going to be an office or general expense, right? So I'm going to click add. I'm going to do this first one. The class is really completely unimportant for the purpose of this video. So the sales tax, we don't care about also. So we'll leave it as exempt. And I'll put this under Amazon CA. So it linked this Amazon description to a supplier I already have in there called Amazon CA. And the category, well, I'm just going to leave it under this general office admin, and I'll click add. And look at what happened over here. The next transaction, it automatically knows that it's going to be exempt. And the payee is Amazon.ca. Of course, if you click this, you can modify whatever category it's going to go to. But I like the fact that it's smart enough to realize that in all likeliness, because previous transactions were recorded as Office in General, and if the description is Amazon, the payee is Amazon.ca, that it has that done automatically. So I'll click add for this one too. I've fast forwarded a little bit, and I've done a similar setup that I've done like for the credit card, but for a bank account. So now you'll see at the top here, I have a checking account. This is my bank that I brought into QuickBooks. And down here, I see the transactions that I've imported. So now it's nice because I can show you that here I have under action match. So what QuickBooks or QBO is telling me is that this paper statement fee, it's already been recorded. This guy right here. I've already manually done this entry. So all I'm going to do now is click match. That doesn't record any transaction. It just matches that line item to the entry I've already made, and it gets rid of it from this little for review section. Next item, monthly plan, click match again. Same deal because I've already entered it. And it's gone. Now I have this overdraft interest, 3 cents. So that's something that I'm going to want to add because I didn't actually enter it. So I can click add, forget about the class again, and should go under interest. There's no tax. Add. So I got rid of it. Now look at what we're left with. We're left with this paper statement fee. That's a match. I know that I've entered that. Now this one, it says 2 records found. Let me expand and see what those 2 records are. So under action, there's view. What QuickBooks is telling me is there's 2 different entries that I've done previously with that same description, $4 or $5 on that same exact date. And I intentionally did that entry twice because I wanted to highlight this feature. QuickBooks is smart enough to tell you that there's 2 records found. So what you're going to want to do is match it to one, but now this is telling you that you probably might have made a mistake. You might have made the entry twice, right? So you're going to want to go back to one of these guys, and you're going to want to delete this. So eventually you'll delete it and you'll just match it to whichever one, the first one. And sometimes it may very well be that they are 2 separate transactions, right? So for now we'll match, and then I'm going to want to go back and delete that transaction. Now, how do you know if you did double entries while you're going through this process? If you did, your ultimate sanity check is your bank reconciliation or your credit card reconciliation in the case of a credit card, right? So if you're doing double entries, you need not worry. Your final check is always going to be the reconciliation. Some final things that I didn't mention is we saw add, we saw match, we saw view under action. There's another thing you might also see, which is transfer. And that happens when you're transferring an amount from one account to another account. So it's possible that you have a checking account and you transfer money from one checking account to another checking account. In that case, QuickBooks is very often smart enough to know that you're transferring amounts from one account to the other. So look out for that transaction label under action. So now if I go to my chart of accounts, Alt-Control-A is the shortcut to get there. Just want to highlight one thing. Under Visa Silver, which we set up, there's these arrows here. Okay, you can see these arrows. That indicates that we set up bank feeds for that credit card account, and it's the same thing with our bank account. Our bank account here, we did the setup, so we have those little arrows. And this is basically how credit card feeds and bank feeds work in QBO. That's the end of our video. Hopefully you found it useful, and if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe.